All righty. Look like we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Doc Bookshop Community Meeting and the Black and Brown Coalition meeting. I'm going to give you time to gather in. And while you're doing that, I'm going to check to make sure my channels are working. So just gather in, everyone. We have a great conversation with some wonderful people today. I'm so interested to hear more about this Stop City Cop, right? Stop City Cop. That's what we're talking about today.
Stop Cop City.
Stop Cop City. Okay, Stop Cop City. I don't know what I typed in the title, but it's supposed to be Stop Cop City. Um, so definitely gather in, and I'm gonna check and make sure my socials are working. And if you have social, you can check. You can go to our Doc Bookshop page and share it on your channel as well. So give me a minute. I just want to make sure because I've done a whole live and I didn't have any vocals, and we won't ever do that again. So, um, okay, sounds good. That one's working. I'm gonna check YouTube because we actually have three audiences. We have our YouTube, we got our Facebook, and we have a wonderful in studio. Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you.
Shout out to Tommy. Okay. All right. So let me make sure. Okay, great. YouTube is up. I got it right. Stop Cop City. I got it right on there. Okay. There we go. All righty. Okay, well, I'm Donna Craddock. I'm with the Doc Bookshop. I'm co-owner of the Doc Bookshop. And for those who don't know, the Doc Bookshop is an indie bookstore. We're on the east side of Fort Worth off of Hanley and Meadowbrook. So if you're in the area, do make your way to our store. We would love to see you. Also, you can check us out online at thedocbookshop.com. We've been around for about 16 years. Just engaging community and loving books and reading and doing all that we do. We do a lot here at the Doc Bookshop. And one of the things that we do is that we definitely want to give voice to our community. So we appreciate the Black and Brown Coalition. Usually Alex, my buddy, is here with me, but in his absence, I'm just going to try to hold it down myself. So y'all got to bear with me. I usually have a balance, right? I don't have any balance today, so no telling where this conversation going to go. But so shout out to Alex with the Black and Brown Coalition. He's not able to be with us today, but we do appreciate all that he does. And I want to shout out my sister Danya. She will be here soon as well. She's my other half of the Doc Bookshop, so she's en route. So all right, let's go ahead and get started with the conversation. So introduce yourselves. Who do we have the privilege of being in the company of? Who want to go first?
I can go first. Yeah.
Okay.
My name is Chelly. I'm a member of Stop Cop City, Dallas.
You say Chelly?
Mm-hmm. Chelly.
Chelly? How you spell that?
Cheli.
Cheli. Chelly. Okay.
I'm a member of Stop Cop City, Dallas, and then I'm also a member of the National Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression,
Okay.
also known as NARPR.
Okay. Yes, I'm familiar.
Mhm.
Yes, I'm definitely familiar with your organization. Okay.
My name is Bayana. Most people call me Bay.
Are you saying Bay?
Bay. B-A-Y.
B-A-Y.
Yes,
Bayana.
B-A-Y.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm a resident here in East Fort Worth. And
Okay.
I am with Stop Cop City, Dallas, and Black Lines for Peace.
Okay. All right. Now, both of you have soft voices. I'm going to ask you to talk loud because I don't have my speaker on, and I'm going to make sure they hear you. Okay. So we have Chele and Bay with us today. And they're going to be talking to us about Stop Cop City. So let's just get right into it. What is Stop Cop City? What is that? Who's going to give us the history on that?
We can bounce off each
Yeah,
other.
I
Yeah,
think so.
I'm gonna kick this off.
Sure. So Stop Cop City is a term that was coined by organizers in Atlanta when Atlanta PD and other state actors worked together to try to build what we're calling Cop City. It is a militarized police compound where police train on how to further criminalize the marginalized people, right? So any tactics that police have been using that we see, like in incidents of police brutality, for example, they're learning how to do that on a bigger scale. And they're using taxpayer dollars to do it. And so organizers in Atlanta coined that term Cop City, and it has spread like wildfire all over the United States.
Okay.
Yes, in response to movements and protests, the state has decided to build 69 cop cities across the United States. And one of those is here in DFW, and it's set to be built in District 8 in South Dallas. But it is not necessarily just a Dallas facility. They're coining it Regional Law Enforcement Training Center. So it's regional and it affects all of Texas, and it's law enforcement, which means not just DPD, but any law enforcement agencies that they deem fit.
Interesting. Okay, so you're saying that there are, I'm just trying to summarize, because you said a whole lot. So I'm just trying to summarize it for us simple folk out there, right?
Right.
So you're saying that they are building cop cities throughout the nation.
Mhm.
And DFW is one of those cities. And you're saying with that cop city comes, what did you say, a facility? What you say is it's like a training that they're doing?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, so with particularly with Atlanta, they had a mock village that was a part of their facility, and it resembled like an urban area. So they had like streets and the renders of like the architects that were building it, and like it really like shook Atlanta, right? Because not only was this facility being placed in a predominantly Black neighborhood, but it was also being placed over one of the only forests that was in Atlanta. And so it really shook people up. People were really like, you're destroying this like environment that, you know, one of the only places that's keeping Atlanta cool whenever the summers hit, but also one of the most marginalized communities in Atlanta. So people really mobilized to address that and bring attention to.
I'm just trying to
what was
figure out.
going
So,
on.
so you're saying that they had a facility that was basically like a city within a city
Mhm.
to train police officers.
Mhm.
Oh, and basically, what they call that, martial law?
How to do raids. How to
Mhm.
raid it specifically was one of their things. They also tend to build like driving courses, like driving tracks to practice how to do like car chases, how to do raids, like some of the raids that we're seeing right now against pro-Palestine protesters that are actually, one just happened in New York recently, where they burst in and arrested a couple of students for peacefully protesting about Palestine. And interestingly, law enforcement has a tendency across the nation to cite protests as a reason for building these big training facilities, right? So DPD specifically, when they made the video about their regional law enforcement that they're building here, that facility, they cited BLM protests from 2016 as a reason why they need an additional $50 million of taxpayer money on top of money from NGOs and private donors to build this massive militarized facility. They're very open about wanting police to have more resources, despite the fact that in Dallas alone, it's 61% of the budget, right? Despite the fact that law enforcement continuously chooses violence and chooses to kill when they don't have to, like in Tarrant County Jail, right, with Sheriff Wyborn and his jail officers who
Right.
killed people like Anthony Johnson Jr. and 69 others since 2017. So despite all of these facts that show us that law enforcement is not what we need to invest more in, right, that with more resources that they don't do better, they're still demanding more from the people under the guise of public safety.
Wow, then this is really interesting. So your group, how so okay, now I kind of got to understand what you're about. Okay, hopefully everyone got to understand what they're about. I want to know how do you intend, because it's so big.
Mhm.
I mean, it's like throwing rocks against tanks. So how do you how do you see stopping that from happening?
Yeah.
Like, what are the plans? What do you see doing?
I think that more than anything, we really have to build mass awareness about this facility and how it would impact the DFW, but like the North Texas region, and mobilizing people to like stop these. For example, there's an architecture firms, which like we have a research team that's been going into this, and all of this stuff is also public information. Like the videos that they cited about like what it is that their intention is with building it, from like all the money that the city, the state, and public funders are putting out there, like the Texas Communities Foundation.
Okay.
So there's like a lot of information that we've been able to collect and analyze. So one, that's been a really big role that we've taken on so far, of like collecting that information, and two, like building mass awareness and trying to mobilize people to stop this. Additionally, like one of our kicking off projects was the Stop Prop F, which is when the city like put this proposition of where I think it was $90 million, right? Of the city's budget for the year is going to be going to this facility, and it passed. Despite
Are
all
you
our
kidding me?
yeah,
It was $90 million overall for public safety, 50 million specifically just for this facility. And that's not like, oh, this is the city's budget for the facility for the year. This is in addition to the 61% of the budget that goes already every single year to the police department. So on top of that, let's give another 50 million.
Is this happening at DFW?
Yes, this is happening in DFW. Specifically, Proposition F was a Dallas proposition because that is where the facility will be sited. However, it's a regional facility. So they're asking Dallas taxpayers to not only pay against their own safety and well-being, right? But they were also asking them to pay against their neighbors, right? Because they're not just going to be training Dallas officers there. It's regional, so they intend to bring in law enforcement agencies. And that could look like police, that could look like jail staff, that could look like immigration and customs enforcement, ICE, that could look like Homeland Security. We don't know. That information has not been made publicly available, but I think that they choose their words very carefully. And instead of branding this as a DPD facility, they're branding it as law enforcement training regionally.
Let me ask you this. So when do they plan to start construction with this? Do you know?
Next year, June 2025. So the architecture firms that were awarded funds through the May elections are like, they're the ones that kicked that work off, and they plan to have that stuff figured out by the spring of next year.
Oh wow.
So then the construction companies, they're going to start their biddings to be awarded the funds to build the facility.
Let me ask you this. How do you think, assuming everything worked properly, how could we have avoided that? Like, what could have stopped that from happening? Is it certain politicians? I mean, like, how did we get so far? How did that happen on our watch? On everybody's watch, how did that happen? Were there,
That's a good question.
you know, like who do y'all think, you know, or what happened? Like, how did that happen? Like, what is your story behind
Did the voters put that on there, or was it the city council?
I guess the city was the ones who like put these propositions up, and they do that like through surveys that kind of narrow down what the priorities of the residents are. However, like one criticism that we shared pretty early on is that a lot of those like surveys that they send out don't really reach a lot of people. Like I remember I would fill stuff out. Also, it took me 1 hour to fill one form out, out of like the 4 that I went out of my way to seek, to try to fill out, to try to influence how it was that they were gonna like frame the budget. And it was like, no, like if you're not somebody who pays a lot of attention to like local government and what they're doing, then that type of stuff can really slide past you.
And a lot of people don't pay attention
Right.
to
And this
those
is
propositions and all that. I mean, folks trying to eat and sleep, but they're not even, you know.
Yeah.
But again, that's where we kind of depend on our politicians and our elected officials to kind of help with that process. So I'm just trying to figure out, again, like who is speaking out on that? Who is advocating for it or against it? Like who's giving voice to that?
I think that we have evidence that the city of Dallas, at least, has been interested in this since 2017, and that Tarrant County has also been talking about a police compound that they didn't get to put forward. And so one question that I have is whether or not Tarrant County law enforcement is involved within this Dallas one to try to like kill 2 birds with 1 stone, right? Since it seems like theirs is not at least public at this time. I also think, though, that part of the reason that propaganda is so strong is that we've been trained to sympathize with the police. Despite everything that we see them do constantly, there's this narrative that the police are actually just good people who just came to protect and serve, and a few of them go rogue sometimes and kill people, and that's bad and we should stop them, but overall police are a good thing. And we kind of want to challenge the narrative that it's not part of policing to be violent against marginalized people, because what they've shown us is that in other areas where police got more training through similar law enforcement training facilities, we haven't seen them be better towards people, right? We haven't seen them go out of their way to protect people like they say that they're going to do. But they are able to get facilities like this passed, and to your note about politicians, and get even quote unquote progressive leaning politicians to agree with these measures because they say that it's for public safety, and we'll do extra training, and we'll teach people how to we'll teach law enforcement how to interact with all different types of people, and that's gonna work. But what we've seen is that it doesn't, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's not been evidence that it does work because structurally the police from the beginning have not been designed to protect and serve, at least not certain people.
Exactly.
That's good.
So true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that something to add to that when it comes to like politicians, it was like a former city council person, I can't remember her first name, but her last name is Gates, is like really, really vocal and was like in the videos that the police put out to like be in support of this facility when Prop F was like being discussed. And then also there's an institution, the Caruth Institute, which was developed in like 2008 or so. That family comes from the Caruth Foundation, and that family was an enslaving family here in Texas, in Dallas specifically. And so like the roots of this, I think, are you can see them in like what Bay is saying, of like how like they've been behind this, they've been pushing for this, they've been wanting something like this since its founding, and they're the ones that are like training the police and funding like basic stuff in like the academy.
Right. And so the fear though is that like you said, that it's not going to get better but worse for certain groups of people if this actually happens. But and my thing is now, I don't know if we can stop it. Say we can't stop it. How do we get involved to make sure that it's not going to be worse for targeted groups that always get the brunt of police brutality? Like how do we really get involved with this? Like, what needs to happen for the people to get involved? Now, I know a lot of people. To be honest, I know a lot is going on. We just came from this election. We're in the holiday season, so people might not be as focused as they should on politics right now. But I do believe, like in 2025, the conversation is going to change, and I really hope that this will be part of that conversation. So how can we ensure that people are talking about this and bringing awareness to what's happening? Because I think a lot of people slept on this one and are sleeping on it. Yes, so.
I think that a big part of it is starting by having those conversations, right? By educating ourselves on like what is happening and what is being pushed and taking a critical lens on it. And then maybe just equally importantly is deciding where to spend that energy once you know, right? Because some people will spend that energy trying to convince these politicians, right, that this is not useful. And though some people would like to put their energy towards those efforts, Stop Cop City believes in people power, that we as a community can stand against this, and that there's power in educating one another and in ensuring that our community knows where we stand on this, and that our community understands it for the threat that it is, that it's not a negotiation with the city or with the police about whether or not our lives matter or whether or not our communities are worth investing in. One of the biggest arguments against Cop City is that while we have like neighbors who are on the street and do not have homes to live in, right? While we have mothers who are struggling on EBT and WIC, while we have like all of these, which by the way, does not even offer a lot of people what they need. Even sometimes government assistance doesn't go the way that it needs to go, right? We have people who are struggling with housing and then they get into government housing and it sucks. And it's very hurtful to see that as opposed to investing in real community issues that actually go towards preventing crime, they would rather invest all of that money and time and resources into law enforcement, right? Instead of worrying about the root causes that they supposedly need law enforcement to respond to.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I've learned a lot about Stop Cop City here. Okay. And lastly, let's talk about you're saying like in Atlanta they have initiatives going on with Stop Cop City. So how far are they with this? I mean, do you see them? What are they doing? Are they protesting against the building? I mean, the building up, because it's up and going in Atlanta, right? So, I mean, are they protesting that, or are they putting information out? What is happening what examples can we follow, at this point?
Yeah, I mean, Atlanta started protesting in 2021. Like this goes back quite some time now. And they did mass like canvassing, leafleting, like going in and talking to the community, building a base of folks that did end up protesting. And there was like mass disruptions in the facility to protect the forest. Like people knew what was at risk if this facility were to be built, because also this facility was going to be built in the South. Like people really don't talk about and look at the South as a place of where folks are resisting like state expansion of like police power. And so it was really like as somebody who's raised in the South and seeing that, I'm like, yeah, like that's what's up. Like y'all are doing really awesome of like setting an example. And there's, they're people, so they're not perfect and there's things to be learned. But I'm sorry, what was your question?
Well, no, I think like you're saying that's an example. I mean, you see them protesting, and now let me ask you this, and they kind of disrupt the process a little bit. So I mean, they're not taking it lightly. You know, I mean, they're trying to do something. Do you see that happening here in Dallas?
I don't know. I think that if we can build like a base of folks that are really like down for something like that, then yeah. But I think that it does like need a lot of people. And I think something that I thought of while Bay was speaking earlier is like I think we really have to know what's at risk, because and like what is at stake if we lose, because after 2020, like the protests that happened then, like we've seen a mass shift in the public narrative of like policing. And even though in 2020 people were like really starting to think like, yeah, cops shouldn't kill people, like we've kind of seen a big pushback in the opposite. And so like if this facility is built, even despite like mass protests against it, like what is it that is going to be waiting for us on the other side of that?
And I'm wondering if these facilities ties into this whole deportation thing and serving as, I just wonder if that's part of the master plan.
It
To-
very well could be. I mean, they're calling it law enforcement, I think, for a reason. And we know that, for example, the Tarrant County sheriffs have, like, they have contracts with ICE to where ICE is allowed to come into the jail. And so does Dallas, correct? Where they can come into the jail and they can ask people about their immigration status and deport them from jail. So somebody can.
Yeah, but I'm thinking they need like a holding spot,
Yeah.
kind of like,
And they have some, like Prairie Land Detention Center is here in North Texas, and that's a big facility where they hold people and then they deport people from an airport in Keller. An organization called ICE out of Tarrant does a lot of great work around that, and they have efforts to shut down Prairie Land Detention Center, which is a very sick name, by the way. Prairie Land, like an ode to the natural ecosystem here, and it's very disturbing that they would name a place like that something like that, right? And so I think that's another thing that we like to talk about with Stop Cop City is that this is a fight for the protection of the land, right? This land was stolen, and then people were forced to labor on it, and now it is continuing to be degraded over and over and over again. And as we see all these crises of environment get worse and worse, the summers are getting hotter and harder. It's like unbearable for people to live here. Like, I've lived in Texas pretty much my entire life, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. And part of that is because we keep cutting down trees, destroying prairie, and getting rid of the native ecosystems that are meant to keep us cool and to keep us safe, right? And that's what Chetty was talking about in Atlanta. They did a massive deforestation project in order to build this. And so they're exacerbating problems. We're worried about all the people who reside in these areas who are facing much more intense flooding than usual, who are facing the damage of their homes, or who might not have homes to begin with and are facing extreme cold and extreme heat because the environment is being degraded. And so this effort is also rooted in protection of the land and in demanding that the state not just use it as a pawn in this game.
right. That's good. Okay, let's see if we have any thoughts on here. Stop Cop City. Someone says it. Okay, I need you to tell me again. What is it? It's a movement. It's more of a movement, right? It's not an organization. It's not something that people can join. It's a movement because you're part of the organization. You're part of the organization, and y'all just kind of coming together. Or is it an organization?
It's a coalition.
Coalition. Okay.
Yeah. So there's there's organizations that belong to Stop Cop City, and there's individuals and
Okay.
like folks from all over the DFW who are active.
It is something that people can be part of.
Is it a
we do have-
website?
We do have an Instagram. It's Stop Cop City DTX.
Okay.
And people can visit that to learn more about our upcoming events and come out to events and get to know everybody. And that's a great way to get involved if people are interested in the work that the coalition does.
Okay, great. That's great. I was wondering how to get in contact with Stop Cop City. Okay. Any last words you want to share with the community regarding Stop Cop City?
Yeah, I think I would just really emphasize what Bay shared just now about following the Instagram. There's a lot of really good information about this facility, like where it's located. It's located in one of the most incarcerated zip codes in Texas. And we're hopefully going to be coming up with more information as far as like what you were saying about like mass deportations, like how that can overlap with this kind of facility,
Mm-hmm.
and like in general, like how it relates to different aspects of our lives, and then events, actions. There's the two architecture firms that I mentioned just a moment ago, which is KAI, and then also HKS, that accepted the project to build this facility. They're both pretty big architecture firms. HKS is national, but they do build prisons and all kinds of stuff, unfortunately. So putting, people who are professionals on the spot of like, what kind of world are you building? And what kind of worlds do we need? And developing that shift in the public narrative of like, we can't just keep building towards destruction of like our fellow people. We have to start building people up, and in one of the most incarcerated zip codes, like
Investing in people.
yeah, investing in people, like they should be ashamed. They should be embarrassed to work for HKS, and it shouldn't be regarded, and it is regarded as one of like the finest architecture firms in the United States, and that's embarrassing. But that's like where we're at right now.
Mm. Okay.
I would just say that, Stop Cop City is a shared fight. Wherever you are, whatever it is that you do, it is a threat because it diverts resources that our community needs desperately for work that would actually benefit people's lives towards something that hasn't been shown to have any benefit on anybody's lives. So if you're interested in that, the Instagram again is Stop Cop City DTX. As Shelley mentioned, our most recent post actually is an introduction post, and talks very much about the basics of what's going on, but we also have linked documents where people can start to read up on the things that are happening.
Okay. I see a question out there. I want to make sure I got all the questions. Give me 1 minute. Okay. All right. I want to make sure I get all your questions and your comments. Okay, I think I got them all. Okay, so wonderful. So thank you all for joining me this evening at our community meeting and the Black Brown Coalition meeting. Thank you for coming out and sharing with us about Stop Cop City. We need to talk more about it. This is just the beginning of our conversation. We really need to bring awareness to this because I do see, I kind of see the DFW going to a police state, and with all that's going on in politics and in the world right now, I think we need to be a little bit more alarmed about this, and get behind Stop Cop City, and let's just talk about it and bring awareness and see what we can do to. It'd be good if we could just stop it. That's the goal, to stop it, right? So let's fight this thing, fight the good fight of faith. So, all right, well, thank you, ladies, and there's Danya. Hi, Danya.
Gallery real quick.
Huh?
And I was listening to some of it coming in, but
Yes.
we talk about it being Cop City, but are we also talk about, there's a lot of depressed people, homelessness, and a lot of stuff that's plaguing our community. And I think at one time, and then you got this road where people are it's just everything is out of kilter because they don't think people are policing because the police is so scrutinized. But at the same time, the police are, they have been scrutinized that they haven't been doing a lot of ticketing, and they said that the ticketing that officers were doing were ticketing people. But now you have all these people that think they control the roads and all this stuff. There's a lot of speeding, like, because they don't think that there's a community or officers are out there doing that work. And so there is a lot of people in the community. It was on TV.
Okay.
It was
Well,
on
yeah,
news.
I think I know what you're referencing. There was an article that came out.
because I see them all. I see cops all the time when I'm with me.
Well, they're starting to come back out, but at one time, but how many people have lost their lives because, the police got a little lax because of so much community outrage. So it had a opposite effect at some point. I just want to make sure if we're talking about policing, we're making sure that other crimes don't continue to exist where it calls the police not to be involved. That's all I'm saying.
I can definitely speak to that. I think I did see an article that was to the point of what you were saying, where they were talking about, I think it was specifically Tarrant related, and they were saying that cops are giving less tickets, and the narrative that the police were pushing was that, with all this scrutiny, we don't want to pull people over for these things because, they might accuse us of something. But I would encourage us to, I think it's twofolded. On one hand, I would encourage us to think about, though they claim that, like, we're doing less of this, right, because of scrutiny, on the other hand, they're also doing worse things, right? So they're claiming that we don't want to pull people over because of these traffic stops that are constantly getting questioned, but at the same time, Tarrant County Jail has killed 69 people since 2017, right? So law enforcement, what they say and what they do don't often match. But I will say that, like, speeding and road safety are, like, legitimate concerns, right? And especially when Texas, like, has some of the highest, like, number of deaths on roadways in the entire United States. Like, I understand why community would be afraid of that. Like, your kid gets out on the road, you don't want them to come home. You want them to come home safe, right? You don't want them to come home hurt. Or not come home at all.
Or shot because somebody had a bad day of work and you just actually cut them off.
Right, and road rage is real. I think what I would like for people to think a little bit more about, though, is what is the real solution to kids speeding, right? To bad behavior on the road, to road rage. Will an officer pulling them over curb that the way that we think it will? Or will it incite more fear and violence? And I think the answer to some of these issues of public safety that we are legitimately concerned about, because it does have to do with people's lives, is better education for people and more time and investment in resources in how to make sure that people have a full understanding of their actions having consequences, whether they're the driver or whether they're the person who's on the other side of, like, a road rage incident, right? And so I used to be a teacher. I used to be a high school teacher, and so I worked with a lot of kids that were, like, getting their licenses for the first time and things like that. And I think it really showed me, like, the power of conversation, just being able to talk to kids about those things. And I think that, like, our communities have more power than we think we do. We all interact with young people on a daily basis, and we interact with older people on a daily basis, and we have the ability to create structures where they can get the education that they need to make safe decisions when they go out and about. But unfortunately, it seems that when we leave that to law enforcement to do, they don't end up making the right choice for the kids, right? And so I sympathize with that completely, because I have a bunch of younger siblings and I used to teach, and I love those kids. And I want them to be safe too on the road. I just think that there are other ways to ensure that. And, in certain communities, it used to be back in the day, if you acted up, there was an elder in the community who would come to you and talk to you.
Right,
And
right.
we're losing that too.
Mhm.
Like, there's that joke on the internet of, like, we're losing recipes. Some of that is recipe, right? And some of that is on the community to recreate those structures within our own community for the kids. Like, everybody knows an older person who has these advices, and I think that it's a beautiful thing to see kids get in a room with, whether it be with a teacher, whether it be with their uncle, whether it be with their aunt, and just talk about these things and be ready to go forth with that. There's also, in other informal ways of teaching these things that people can do. And so I think that if that's a concern that communities have, it is valid, and we can find ways to address that within our community.
Okay.
And maybe
But-
phase out, and make things happen in a phase out approach so we can feel safe. I think that just right now, I feel so unsafe in
But-
moving around.
Yeah, but what I think what they're really dealing with though.
But she answered the question great, I'm sorry.
She did, but I think, but what they're dealing with is this facility that is being built, really for a military state, and so that's kind of what kind of, and it all ties into public safety. All of it does, I think. But I think we need to bring Danya up to speed with what you all are advocating for, because it's not about, we definitely, we all, if something happens, we're going to call the police. So we
Okay.
support the police. If someone breaking here right now, we're calling 911.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
So yeah, we're not speaking against the police. We're talking about the funding and the overfunding. Like now, we support the police. We love the police and all that they do. The good ones anyway. All that they do. But our concern is the over. Say that word for me. Military. I can never say that.
Okay, over militarization.
Militarization.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they say
okay.
better than me. That word. Okay, I think that's the concern we have right now.
Okay.
And dealing with the funding of it. It's so much money that's going into policing versus going into people
Yes.
and just kind of helping people. She was saying, I'm just trying to catch my sister up. So y'all chime in because I know I miss a whole lot. But she was saying that basically, I mean, in addition to the funding that they're already getting, they're getting an additional $50 million to build this facility. And it's a huge facility, but it's also in a neighborhood that, like you pointed out, had the zip code with the most incarcerated. So I mean, it's just like over policing, really, and it's like we just got to have balance. We don't want to get out of balance, really. And also, she spoke about the environmental concerns with the getting of the facility. So
I'm all about the environment.
so it's just a lot going on, and so I don't want people. And Diane's right. We don't want to give people the wrong idea. We if you're right, we support the police because if something goes down, I am calling the police. So we're not saying that, but we just want balance, and we want
Okay.
and accountability, and we also want to make sure that it's not, we got to invest in people as well.
Okay.
Not so much in the policing.
I
So and like she said, I mean, they're not giving out traffic tickets, but they're over here building this facility that you really don't know nothing about. But when it comes, but eventually you're gonna learn about it because it's just so you got to just look at the whole picture, because if they're not doing this, you better believe something else is going on.
Yeah, connect the dots.
And to that point, I think that the narrative is intentional, right? Like, it's not, I don't think that it's like an accident that they would feel comfortable putting out these, articles of, on one hand, we're not giving out as many tickets, guys. On the other hand, we're afraid for our lives, guys. But what their actions and the money speaks, and they're choosing to spend that money and choosing to spend their resources to do something different. I also think that I maybe have a little bit of a different perspective on like our interactions with police, because for some people, calling the police is not because we support the police or because we love the police, but because the system and the state has convinced the masses that that is the only option. Like I said earlier about community elders, in certain communities, it used to be known who was the person who was trying to break in and who is the person to call when that happens, to go deal with them, right? It is known that, it is known that there are people that we can go to in our communities to help to keep people safe. And I think that we're losing that. And as a community,
We have lost that.
we have.
Okay, I mean, right
That's why I
now,
say it's gotta be a phased approach, because you
Yeah.
don't wanna go
And-
cold turkey, cause just to that point, I remember, you know, cause we've been here 16 years, and so we've had a lot of those discussions and about community policing. And, you know, I said, let's kind of test that theory out. So one day we had an altercation out in front of the bookstore, and I called a member, you know, a great guy. But at that particular time, he said, you know, I would come, but I ain't got no transportation right now. So I have to call the cops, you know, because there was something that was breaking down and trying to get the community call. Now you're dealing with other dynamics.
yeah,
like,
we definitely have to build
Yeah, you
and
have
bring
to
that
be-
back up, because right now that's not really functional in a lot of communities like it once.
Like-
and
like a
there's a lot
Minuteman.
wrapped up in
And,
that, right?
and
In order
again, to be honest, we kind of like in Tatiana Jefferson's case. I mean, her neighbor did call the police, and it didn't really work out in her favor. So I mean, it's
and
You just
and
don't-
that's the thing, is that so often when we call the police, we just saw that with Sonia Massey, right? Like, she called the police for help. She herself needed help, and they still chose to kill her, and we saw it on video, right? So like that is an equation that unfortunately a lot of people have to make that calculus when they do feel like they're in danger. But I think that, to your point about calling a community member, I applaud you for going to that option, right? Let me call this community member in to deal with this instead of turning to the cops. And I think that, you know, with that transportation issue and everything, it just shows how much we have to work on as a community, because there's a lot of structures that build up to somebody being able to respond, right? Like we're super spread out. You need a car to go almost everywhere that you need to go, right? So that's why things like, you know, when people need help paying for rent, or they need help to get their car fixed, or all these different things, like when people need something like just to be able to do life, that's why it's so important that as communities we band together to make sure people have that, because when we're all good, then we can rely on each other better.
right.
Mhm.
We were all good.
I like that. I like
And,
that.
and to your point about phasing out the police, even if we wanted to like, if we had a delete button for the police today, that's not possible. Like, we live in the United States, right?
Oh, that's probably,
That,
I won't,
like,
probably won't even be here if
there's-
they do that.
There's a whole, it's by design. And so with Stop Cop City, like, we don't advocate for having to turn to the police in situations, but we also know that there's a lot of community support that has to be built, and there's a change in narrative that is needed in order to create these systems of support for people. And so, you know, that's a conversation that we also look forward to having more with other community organizations. And I know that maybe people who are watching online with the Fort Worth Black and Brown Coalition who would be interested in working with us on that. But, you know, we want to build up that infrastructure in the community so that the community is not relying on law enforcement that has shown us that they don't make the right choice when people call them for help.
Thank you
Okay.
for answering my questions.
Of course.
All right. Okay, this was a heavy topic. Okay, so we're going to end on getting in touch. Give them the Instagram again.
It's Stop Cop City DTX.
Okay. All right, y'all. Thank you all for chiming in. We had a very enlightening conversation about Stop Cop City, and we will be having more conversations. So look forward to that. And you all will have a good night. And Diane's not around to stop my thing, so here I go.
Sorry.